Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here on the Dakotan. I'm Jonathan Starr. Today I'm joined by Justin Anderson, the Executive Director of the Minot Area Council of the Arts. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
It's great to have you on the podcast. And so you've been there for about 5 years now.
5 years. I'm just a little under 6 weeks shy of 5 years.
6 weeks shy. That's awesome. What was the decision to go to the MACA?
Oh, geez. How much time do we have? It can be kind of a long story that led me on that path. So I graduated from Minot State University many years ago with a degree in communication arts, which is a degree that's not held over there anymore. But my emphasis was both theater and speech. And ultimate goal for me at that time was to be a professor.
Okay.
And so I went on to grad school. I have a master's degree in theater history, and I taught around for a while. So I went to grad school in Illinois.
Okay.
And after 6 years, my wife went to grad school in Indiana. A job brought us to Virginia. And so I was teaching at community colleges in all three of these states.
Wow.
And, doing speech and theater and humanities and all of those things. And as much as I enjoyed it, so I really enjoyed being in the classroom and interacting with students and building a rapport with students and having a lot of that. I hated everything else. I didn't like anything else about teaching.
Right.
And so when we got the opportunity to come back to Minot, and it was my wife's job that brought us there, when we got the opportunity to come back to Minot, I decided to leave teaching behind. And
big decision.
Right. But I recognized where I was burnt out. I recognized where important. I needed that break to know whether or not I wanted to continue on with this.
Right.
And it was probably the best decision I could have made because I never looked back and said, oh, gee, why didn't I do that? And so I worked a variety of jobs. I was with UPS for a while. I was at the Minot Daily News for a while. That's where I met you.
Exactly.
And Kim.
Yes.
And I was kind of looking at, jobs that were becoming available, trying to figure out what do I want to do when I grow up?
Exactly. We've all been there.
Right. And, it's fun to do that when you are a married adult with two children and you're like, well,
Tons
what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I started to notice actually my wife noticed first a common theme in the things that I was showing the most interest in.
Right.
And that was somehow promoting or being an advocate for some form of organization that mattered to me.
Right. That's big.
And when she pointed that out, it was a light bulb moment for me. I thought, well, good grief. I didn't notice. I had not noticed this. She noticed it.
Right.
And I said, well, okay, this gives me some sort of line to pursue.
Yeah.
I ended up working at the Service Valley Animal Shelter for a while, and that was my first step into
communications
nonprofit work. Yep, I was a communications person there. And I mean, I don't think anybody who's listening or watching this would be surprised to, this was before the new building. This was, there were a lot of strange things happening, and I had to leave that position because I saw, a certain amount of writing on the wall with some stuff. Well, at about the time when I was recognizing those elements, the executive director position for MACA opened up.
Right.
And that was almost a no-brainer because here it is, well, I've found this niche of nonprofit work or the idea of doing this sort of advocacy and promotion for something that I care about. Well, arts has been a part of my life always.
Right. Well, I mean,
and
your degree, history.
Right.
Different kind of degree right there.
So that opened up and I said, well, okay, let's
do it.
Let's give this a shot. And here we are 5 years later. and I'm still doing it.
Right.
Strangely enough, one thing that people probably would, or a lot of people are surprised when they hear, like I'm in my late 40s now, and I'm coming up on 5 years. This is the longest I've been at any one job.
Wow, that's incredible.
I taught for 6 years, but it was across 3 states and
Right.
3 different community colleges. Like that's not really
Right.
So.
It's one thing that's interesting, and it's a theme of people that we interview, is they leave Minot and they end up somehow getting pulled back into the vortex that is Minot. You mentioned it was your wife's job. Was it you guys trying to move back here, or it just happened that it worked out that way?
So it was kind of a combination. When we left Minot in 2001. When we left, it was an almost immediate recognition that someday we would be back.
Wow.
And there wasn't an immediate need to find that way back.
Right. Understood.
At any really given point. The last place we ended up was South Central Virginia. If you've ever been to South Central Virginia, it's a different world, and it's not something that we were quite ready for. I'm a cold weather person,
right? Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
It's
a whole different part of the world.
Yeah, but so it was kind of, and it was kind of a fluke that we came across something, and then another kind of interesting sequence of events that led us to actually getting back.
Neat. So 5 years ago, you after searching around, you found Minot Area Council of Arts, and that was your place. I was assuming that probably somewhere in that story, it was going to have to be a passion job, because I understand that there's probably a lot of funds, but if you don't have passion for this, then it's going to be a 1 year and done.
Nobody's doing nonprofit work for a lengthy amount of time unless it's something that is important to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Very good. So what would you say the role of the Minot Area Council of Arts is in the community?
Well, I generally break it down into 3 simple things. First of all, we're advocates for the arts and the arts community. Okay. That's just a matter of making sure that we have the opportunity to speak to people and let them know and understand the importance of the role that arts plays within a city, within a community, both just in the level of vibrancy, but also in economic development, resiliency, education. There are so many layers that arts has an important role in that most people don't generally think of right off the bat. Like if I were to tell the average person on the street that a strong arts community makes a city more resilient when it comes to disasters, nobody's thinking of that right off the top of their head. Not. But it is, time and time again, it is proven true that a community that has a strong foundation in the arts responds better to crisis.
Wow.
Not only better, but quicker.
Interesting. That's interesting.
So that's one component. A second component, of course, is that we are there to support the arts community that Minot has. Right. And for a town of 50,000 people, Minot has an absolutely incredible arts community, and it's a huge one. And they do so many things, and there are so many offerings and so many corners of Minot that have things that people can go and do. So we try to be that central location for people to find out that information.
Very neat.
So that they can do that. So we try to promote the second component becomes that promotion of all the activity. And we, over the last couple of years especially, we're hearing people from Bismarck, people from Fargo, people from Grand Forks, those cities that Minot is generally modeling or held lower than in some respect. We have people from these cities who are absolutely astounded by our downtown and by our arts community.
That's incredible.
They are we've so many times in our downtown activity on Thursdays during the summer, we have people from Bismarck who have said, I wish Bismarck was like this.
Wow.
So
what a community.
And I love it because that's something like for Minot to be able to hear that. It feels like Minot's been striving for that for ever. We're the middle child that doesn't like just trying to get attention.
Exactly.
We're starting to get that. And then the third element of what we do is our own programming.
Okay.
We do run concerts all summer long. 2023 was our 38th year of running summer concert series.
Okay.
Only our third year downtown, but we've been doing it in the parks for 38 years.
Wow.
So
incredible.
That's longevity there. So those are the basic three elements of what we exist to do. Now, of course, in all three of those elements, there's a lot of stuff wrapped into it.
Probably the thing that people are most familiar with are the arts in the park and your downtown things that you do on Thursday nights during the summer. Honestly, and you can shoot me afterwards for this, I have looked down Main Street during the summer. I'm like, that looks like a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. I should get the family and go there.
Yep.
And I'm tired and I go home.
Yep. Yep. Well,
but tell me about it. What's it like? Because it seems like it's a really neat venue that you guys have set up, an environment.
It is. So it's something that took on a life in 2021. Like I said, we've been doing parks for years and years, and I started looking at our park concerts, and we'd have 200 people sitting happily in the park watching the city band or another performer on stage, and it'd be great. There are people there, they're buying popcorn from me, and they're doing their thing. Well, when I started looking at it, and North Dakota was doing their Main Street initiative, and there's all this pull for downtowns, and there's varying elements happening throughout the nation and North Dakota and Minot that are leading towards different things. I started looking at it and saying, well, who's benefiting from this concert in the park? Who's benefiting from these 200 people sitting in the park? Obviously, I have a certain amount of benefit because it's my event.
Right.
My performers and artists have some benefit because they have an audience of 200 people.
Yes.
But beyond that, there's no real grand benefit.
Right.
So I started looking at it, and I thought, well, I'm never going to pull out of the park completely because there's an established audience, and they would throw a fit. I would have a riot on my hands if I took away all of the park concerts. But I thought, I have an opportunity here. I have an opportunity to try something different. Our office is on Main Street. We get along with our neighbors. We love downtown.
Yes.
And we had an opportunity to do something for that. And I thought, well, if I take these 200 people out of the park, give them something to do downtown on Main Street.
Right.
Now I have 200 people that maybe aren't going to Main Street any other time.
Exactly.
Maybe they don't know how great Art Main, Budget, Main Street Books, Margie's, Gourmet Chef, any of those places. Maybe they aren't familiar with them. They don't know that they're there, what downtown has to offer. And a lot of the businesses do stay open late now on Thursday nights during the summer because we've got people.
Yes.
And I've had the conversation with Beth Chelson over at Art Main every summer because it was a struggle for them at first because, of course, they're putting work into it now every week. They're extending their hours, which comes at a cost for business owners.
Yes.
All those different elements, but they said, we can't not do it.
Right.
And each year, it's been more each year that they are seeing the benefits. And I think the best thing I heard after the first year was, she said, well, people aren't really buying very much on Thursday nights, but what is happening is they're coming back.
Wow.
People that she'd never seen in the store before popped in on a Thursday night. Now they know the store's there.
Right. They became aware.
Right. So they then came back and bought something.
Right.
Sometimes it was just right away the next week.
Wow.
So that added something.
You also said,
and it's grown from there.
Yeah, I'm sure. You said that there was 200 people you're seeing in the park and basically relocate them to downtown on Thursday nights. But have you seen them relocated, or have you also seen a new crowd start coming in?
It's a whole new crowd.
Right.
It's a whole new crowd. So our Thursday night, we have live music, of course. Then we added other elements that we don't have in the park. We have arts and crafts vendors, so we have a variety of vendors every week that do it. The only requirement really is that it has to be handmade items.
Okay.
We're not taking MLM groups or like the Tastefully Simples or anything like that. It's handcrafted items. So we have arts and crafts vendors. The Putt District puts out bounce houses every week.
Wow.
And then we have food trucks, and Up Your Axe now brings a mobile axe throwing unit as well. So we have a lot of different elements going on.
Right.
So families can come. There's something for everybody to enjoy, and just really turn it into an event. What was surprising in 2021 is it didn't happen. It wasn't the 200 people from the park came downtown. It was 200 new people who came downtown.
And that's big.
Which was good and bad. There was that struggle where I tried to figure out, okay, my park audience is staying in the park, and my downtown audience is staying downtown.
Right.
And at each concert I would say, this coming Sunday in Oak Park, we would have this, or this coming Thursday downtown, we would have this. And they didn't cross over. Right. Finally, we had a concert in 2022 where some of my park people came.
Yes.
And they kept coming back.
Wow. Neat.
So that was a big element there.
Right.
And so this year in 2023, we grew it a little bit more. Our food truck game was a little bit better. We just had a few better elements and really smooth operation of the whole project this year. And last year, we averaged between 200 and 300 people each Thursday night downtown. This year, we averaged between 300 and 400 people each Thursday night.
Going to have to block a little more of Main Street next year.
I don't know if we're there yet, but that is the goal. In 2021, we started blocking off one block. Last year and this year, we moved it to 2 blocks.
Wow! Just keep growing.
I someday we'll do 3, but more people need to show up.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to do another podcast when summer is upon us to draw even more attention to it.
Well, and the fun thing is it's free. Right. You're not confined to a seat. You're not behind doors. Like the one thing that I talk about, especially with our summer concerts, is you're not buying a ticket for a seat and you feel like you're stuck there. Right. You come in, you listen to a song. If it's not for you, go ahead. Right. Like you're not held there. You can leave. I want you to show up and give it a try. Exactly. I'm not going to be hurt if you walk away if you don't like it. Right. Yeah. But this summer we had a hip hop night this summer, which was the first hip hop night we'd had since I think they did one in 2018 or 2017. Gotcha. But we did a hip hop night downtown. 2 phenomenal performers, one from the Fargo area and one from the Minot area, performing for that evening. And what I absolutely loved, and I will never forget, is we had a couple tables of your typical little old white-haired ladies sitting at these concerts. And when I saw the tables, I thought, sure, they'll listen to a couple songs, because I've seen this happen. Yep. They'll listen to a couple songs. Eventually, they'll gather up their items and they'll leave. Right. Nobody left. Wow. They stayed for the entire concert. Both performers even stuck through the break when we were switching over from one band to the next, and they had a blast. That's awesome. You could see that they were really enjoying themselves, and I loved every minute of that. Yeah, that's neat. That's when you know you're making the impact. Right. Keeps your passion going for what you're doing. You said you also work with area performers or people that are in the arts. What kind of relationship do you have? I mean, I saw you at the Summer Theater this year helping out with the root beer. I mean, you got to love the root beer floats. Western Plains Opera, the Minot Chamber Chorale, those are a few off the top of the head. How do you guys work with the different arts things that are going on and even performers that are wanting to be part of the Council of Arts? So a large portion of our work with organizations like that, like you're mentioning, is we help them with promotion. We have our reach, our social media reach has expanded considerably especially over the last year. I was able to get in a new staff person. Gotcha. I was doing for 3.5 years. I was alone in that office, and I was able to bring somebody else in. Yeah. Chandel came in as an AmeriCorps member, and she has been phenomenal. Awesome. And she has boosted our social media presence considerably. Right. We also have a regular contract with Dakota Outdoor Advertising working on their digital billboard space. And so our organizational members, because we are a member organization, nearly every arts organization in Minot is a member of MACA. And so our members get to utilize that billboard space.
Okay.
And then we're sharing out on social media. We have a monthly newsletter, again, thanks to Chandel, that has really done very well. Since we got that started, we've been going just over a year, I think, with that monthly newsletter, and we've gotten tremendous response from that. So it's that sort of extension. Beyond that, we do get regular calls from people, particularly from the Air Force Base. Somebody who comes into town, they're not really sure they're an artist. They do this, they do that. Right. And they come across Minot Area Council of the Arts, and so they give us a call. I'm always happy to sit down with them. We have had a couple really tremendous artists that then, later became a significant element of the art scene in Minot. And they'll come into the office and I'll say, well, we have all of this to show for the city that we are. And, they'll leave impressed.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So if you're interested in getting involved in the art scene in Minot, then just reach out, go to the website. There's probably a contact form, email, something like that.
And I'm around at a lot of events.
You are.
I mean, like you
Justin
said,
everywhere.
You're
the Where's Waldo of Minot.
Maybe sometimes. Yeah. I think I'm easier to pick out.
Yeah, you're tall enough.
I do things with Mouse River Players. I'm often at the Symphony. I'm around.
Mouse River Players.
My daughter was in 2 of the shows this summer at MSU Summer Theater.
Okay.
My wife and I met at MSU Summer Theater back in 1995, so it is a special place for us. So we are always up there.
That is neat. That is neat. Something else that the Minot Area Council of the Arts manages is the Carnegie Center downtown. This is actually a very fantastic venue. My now brother-in-law held a rehearsal dinner there earlier this year, and it was a good time. And I think an organization that I'm a part of, we're going to be doing something there, business thing during the week here at the end of September. Really neat venue. How did that come about? I mean, there's a lot of work that's been done on that.
That's kind of an odd story as well. It came about kind of as a fluke.
Okay.
It was a really odd set of circumstances, and it ended up flanking me because it came from 2 different directions at the same time. I had gotten a call one day from a lady who I kind of knew. And she said, I spoke to somebody at Visit Minot, and they said, why don't you talk to Justin and find out? I've been trying to reach somebody over at the Carnegie Center because I would like to serve on their board. I would like to be more involved. I love the building. And I said, you know what? I have no way to help you. I don't know anybody that works with the Carnegie Center. I'm not involved with it at all. But I do get those phone calls periodically. I will have people say, do you know how to get a hold of the Carnegie Center? I'm like, Google it and call that phone number. I have no other means of helping you. And it sort of entered my mind, well, that would be interesting. We don't have space. We don't have a space for our stuff. We use the park, obviously, all the time. And, downtown and the Carnegie Center happened at the same time. So our only venue really was the park. Everything else was it was on our own. We were doing concerts in the library periodically, things like that. And I thought, this would be really interesting. Well, right about the same time, it had been brought up at a department head meeting with the city that people were struggling to get a hold of the Carnegie Center again. And that brought in the city manager saying, okay, I have heard this before. We really need to look into this. What's going on at the Carnegie Center? We just did this work and this work. We really need this to be utilized. And it's my understanding, and I don't have any firsthand experience, but what I've heard is this has been kind of an on-again, off-again struggle for a while. And what ended up happening is they determined that there was the lease, a 10-year lease, was ending.
Okay.
At the end of that summer.
Perfect timing.
And so the person who called me happened to also be working with one other person at the city and said, well, what if MACA took over? Yeah. Meanwhile, the city manager is saying, well, what if Justin did something with this place? And it converged and attacked me from both fronts.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, maybe we can do something. I'm a nonprofit. I'm governed by a board of directors.
Right.
And it was several months of conversations with my board, and the city manager came and visited the board to talk about it as well. We even had a meeting in the Carnegie Center with the city manager to talk about things and just determine how it was going. We negotiated. We came up with a lease.
Yep.
And there we have it.
Right.
It kind of amuses me the number of people that say that so much work has been done when it hasn't. Not significant work. We have put time and effort into the building, and I think that's probably the biggest difference is that we have put that time and effort into the building. All the carpeted areas, which is the stairs down, the carpet got replaced. And we have new tables and chairs and things like that. Otherwise, significant work hadn't started. I found out yesterday that they're going to start work on the floor tomorrow. So
that could be problematic for you.
And I found out just last week that the new window coverings have been approved, and now those are ordered and ready to go. And so theoretically, assuming all goes well, by the end of September, we will have newly finished floors that are actually level and gaps tightened and holes filled and everything like that, and all new window coverings throughout the whole building.
Wow.
And I will have looked at the walls with new floor and window coverings and said, okay, that paint really does need to be freshened up. And so we're hoping that in October we're going to be able to say, look at the fresh new look on the main floor of the Carnegie Center, and that's going to be fantastic. Slowly but surely things are happening, but the one thing is that it is being utilized.
That's huge, and
it really hadn't been utilized very much at all for a very long time, and we are regularly. Whether it's a meeting like what you've got coming up, we have wedding receptions, we have full-on weddings. We've had weddings anywhere from 150 people to 12 people in attendance. We did learn that 150 people is probably too much for a wedding at the Carnegie Center, and we're kind of looking at some of the. I'm very open and honest with anybody that comes in and looks at it. I said, okay, if you have this many people and you're trying to do that, this is probably not the space for you, because also. I have a staff of 2, including myself. And so there are 2 of us who have full-time jobs with the Minot Area Council of the Arts, also doing stuff at the Carnegie Center. So, we don't have a maintenance crew or custodial staff or any of that. So all of these rentals, we're putting time and effort into that. Over the summer, we had a third person working part-time over the summer, and she'll be done at the end of this week. So we're back to 2. And
do you guys hold your own events there?
Yes, we absolutely do. We started a year and a half ago. We started a program called Artists After Hours. So I mentioned that we had been doing concerts in the library. And we started that right before COVID. Kind of had to shut down with COVID. Kind of came back with it. It didn't really pick up pace, and it just became kind of a I don't want to say hassle. Hassle's not the right word, but it was a lot of work. And it was a lot on the plates for the folks over at the Minot Public Library. Love them over there. So nothing against them. I completely understood, but we now had this venue, and I thought, well, let's try. We had started doing one at the library, one at the Carnegie Center, and the Carnegie Center was a library, so we had our 2 different libraries that we were going with. I decided to try something new with this Artists After Hours, and it really became a matter of a combination social event and networking event. Artists having the opportunity to work with each other, converse with each other, and then the public having the opportunity to meet some of our local artists and do things like that. It was that intermingling and social atmosphere with a very casual element of networking involved that was really the meat behind where it started. And we've grown a little bit since that very first one. And the one thing that has remained consistent is we always start with a blank canvas. And the canvas is filled by the end of the night by any number of people who happen to have been there.
Interesting.
And some of them are professional artists. Some of them have never picked up a paintbrush before in their lives.
Right.
The mayor was at one of them, and somebody said, "You have to paint. You're sitting at this table. You have to paint." He said, "No, I'd never do it." Finally, he picked up a brush and he had a blast. He contributed to a painting, and it's on the wall in the Carnegie Center, and his name's somewhere on the side of it.
Yeah.
And that's been an element. So we have live music. I'm usually making popcorn, or we'll have something else going on. This year, we want to build it up just a little bit more. Our first one is September 16th, which also coincides with MSU's homecoming. So we're not really doing anything terribly fancy, but we do have the North Dakota State Fair 2023 Hometown Sound winner, Chris Baisden, performing. He always does a great job for us. So we're doing that. But in October, we have two, actually, because one will coincide with our World Fest, and I can talk more about that later. And then we're going to do some Halloween stuff. I have a youth advisory committee, so a group of teens that I work with that plan their own events. So they're doing a youth Monster Mash on Friday the 20th, and then we're doing the adult Monster Masquerade on Saturday the 21st. So that'll be a 21 and up. That'll actually be a ticketed event. We'll have live music and food. And
gotta have live music, right?
All that sort of stuff. Then in November, we're going to give a shot to a good old-fashioned barn dance in the Carnegie Center, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Get people involved in that. So we do have things in the Carnegie Center. That's one element that kind of made it interesting for us to take over this lease, was that we now have our own space that we can start to do some of our own things when we're not busy running around over the summer. We can start to do some of our own activities in this space, and it has been great. We've really been able to utilize a lot of that, even if it's just a board meeting. Or my youth advisory committee coming together or anything like that.
But it's a really versatile space. And for a lot of things.
We also recognized an element, and this came about with World Fest. World Fest is a program through Arts Midwest, which is a regional arts agency covering 9 states.
Wow.
North Dakota's one of them. They have, it's a 3-year cycle called World Fest, where they bring in a cultural exchange international performer for a week-long residency. A couple years ago, Minot Area Council of the Arts was chosen as the North Dakota host for the current cycle.
That's neat.
So we've had 2 of them. We're just a year into the 3-year cycle now. So the first one was in October of 22. The second one was March of 23, and now we have one the first week of October coming up as our third one. We'll have 6 total by the time we're done. And one thing that we utilized the Carnegie Center for is we're right across the street from Central Campus. And I know a few teachers over there, and it's really hard on schools to try to disrupt classes, put kids on buses, bring them to things. It comes down to a variety of elements that make that difficult. But I know a few teachers over there, and I sent a text to one of them. I said, if we had something in the Carnegie Center that coincided with a class period, do you think you or any other teachers would be willing to just bring the students across the street? And she said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And it worked fabulously. Because we're not disrupting the school schedule. We're not using class or school resources at all. They're crossing the street, and they're getting the opportunity to interact with. The first group was from Ghana. The second group was from Finland. This October, it's going to be an Inuit group from Alaska. It's top-notch quality entertainment to be in the first place.
Right.
But then they're there to do cultural exchange. They're there to talk about where they come from and bring some of those elements to people that, we maybe have some connection to Finnish culture around here. But the group that came in March, holy smokes, their music was incredible. Just absolutely mind-blowing and powerful. The group from Ghana was able to get, I loved these high school boys that came into the Carnegie Center with their hoods up and their hands in their pockets, and they're all surly and sitting in the back. The group got everybody up on their feet and dancing, and by the end of the 45 minutes, even these surly guys that wanted nothing to do with it, they were having a blast.
That's neat.
With the Finnish group, we did one in the theater at Central Campus, and first couple rows, there were girls in the first couple rows with just tears streaming down their eyes during one of the songs because it was so powerful. Wow. They're singing in Finnish. Nobody knows what they're saying.
It's just the power of music.
But just the vocals that they were including. And now this Inuit group is coming. They have masks. That's a whole performative thing. Okay. It'll be amazing. So this new element, and we're thinking about utilizing the Carnegie, trying to keep that sort of connection to the schools open. Having, whether it's an after-school arts program or even during school activities that we can bring people over without costing the schools anything.
Right.
Like, we can get stuff for these kids that won't have another opportunity for it outside of that. And it's going to be really good when it moves to a middle school as well, because that is an age group where kids lose some of those things. They're no longer necessarily involved in art or music or anything, because during elementary, you kind of have to. And then you go into middle school and sometimes people start dropping it or losing interest.
Right. Makes sense. So this World Fest, you said Minot was selected for that. How did that come about? Was that a competitive application process, or how did that happen?
I got a call one day. Honestly, that was, an email. I got an email one day from people at Arts Midwest saying, we heard about you and what you've been doing for the organization from Kim, who's the executive director of the North Dakota Council on the Arts, the state arts agency. And we wanted to know, we're trying to figure out where we're going to bring World Fest next. Yeah. And we wanted to know if you'd be interested. Those conversations started in 2020. Okay. I believe. It was a long process. And they had a meeting with me over Zoom. They had a meeting with me just to talk about it, and then there was a meeting that included my board. Then they had me put together a stakeholder group with a variety of community people just to gauge community interest in this sort of activity. It was a couple years of process before the first group actually arrived.
Well, that's incredible that Minot stood out enough, and what you have going on in the Council of Arts stood out enough on this. It sounds like on the state level, and
the last 5 years has been regional. A process.
Yeah, I mean, just from an outsider observing, it's come to the forefront. It's now something that you see in Minot, you know of a Minot, and it's not in the background. And that's obviously coming from someone that doesn't even attend that Thursday night once, which anybody should attend. It's it's like a great time.
It's a comment that I have for everybody. I was just talking about it with a group this morning. You know, Minot has a population of 50,000 people. And most groups, organization, whether it's arts or not, most groups and organizations recognize roughly 2,000 to 4,000 people that show up for things. Yeah. And it makes a lot of us stop and think, what are the other 46,000 people, what are they doing?
Right.
And another thing is, when it comes to arts, performance, whether it's bands, whether it's plays, whatever, right. You hear a lot of we want bigger things in Minot. Right. You know, you talk about the Hussfest or the State Fair, we want big acts. Yeah. Even outside of that, they want big acts throughout the year, not just for that week in July and that week in September. We want big, we want big, we want big. big is not going to come until you start showing up for the things that already exist.
Right.
And we have so much that exists in Minot.
Yes, we do.
That a lot of it's free. The stuff that's not free is low cost. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite stories, and I've heard it several times now, people coming from big areas, California, Chicago, Northeast, with access to big city and big city entertainment, are blown away by what Minot has because it's accessible.
Yeah.
You talk to somebody who lives somewhere in an LA suburb and, oh man, you must have all sorts of access to everything. No, it would take me an hour in the car to get somewhere, an exorbitant ticket fee if there are even tickets available, and then it's just a nightmare parking, going, and coming home. Here, I can drive 10 minutes, see something phenomenal.
Yes.
And then go home, and they don't have to be concerned about all the rest of the stuff that's enveloped. We are so lucky in some of these groups. I had heard there was an executive for Hess, and I don't know his name, and I didn't speak to him. It was a secondhand storytelling. Right. But there was an executive from Hess that when he left Minot to go back to Nevada, I think is where he was. He said, "When I retire, I'm coming to Minot."
Wow.
He said, because what I'm able to do in Minot goes way beyond what I'm able to do in any of these big cities.
That's crazy. That right there stands out huge.
Right.
Yeah, Minot's making a difference. But it goes back to what you said. The people that are here locally have to value it. Yeah. If you can't value the guy that hasn't made it big but still does phenomenal music or whatever it is, then it's tough to value the bigger acts too. It's tough to show that we would value the bigger acts.
And we have a lot of our music is original music too. We have some people that do cover songs, and we have some bands that are primarily cover bands, but most of it is original stuff. And I do hear, I don't recognize any of the songs that they do. There was a time when you had never heard Journey before either.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's the way it works.
It's hard to imagine that.
Yeah.
Because everybody's heard Journey.
Right.
700 times.
Yeah.
But there was a time when you didn't recognize that song. Mm-hmm. Give it a shot. Try something new.
Change your mindset with it.
I have an accordion group that plays, and I always tell people, you may think that you know what accordions are, and you may be more or less right, but if you've never heard 4 to 8 accordions play together, they're playing polka, and you may not like polka music, but give it a shot because it's really kind of neat.
Yeah, right, yeah. It's the concept. Something you guys did is you worked with Strength N&D, I believe it was, creating a strategic plan from 2022 through 2024. Yep. You're coming to the end of 2023, just over the halfway point of the strategic plan. And so far, I was reading through it. Looks like you guys have accomplished a good amount of it. It looks like it's going pretty decent. But
I feel confident enough that you have read through it more recently than I have. So
yeah, well, there you go. But first off, I just want to ask the question of where did that come from? Why do we feel like that was necessary, and how do you feel like that has gone?
So there's a combination of answers on the why it's necessary. And the primary one is that if you have a nonprofit, you should have a strategic plan. Right. And that goes into there are grants that require seeing a strategic plan when you have an application. And so for anybody who's watching or listening that doesn't really understand what a nonprofit is.
Yeah. Let's break it down.
First of all, I have a full-time job and I am paid.
Right.
Because I do I work hard year-round for this organization and for the arts community, and that should not be discounted. Right. Nonprofits have paid staff, and they should. Mm-hmm. Some are all volunteer run, and that's fantastic. But there are nonprofits out there that are doing significant work, and they cannot do that on just running with volunteers. Right. Nonprofits do get money because they have to, because they're doing work that costs money. Right. So the only thing is that we do sell things like popcorn and water. We have a small degree of merchandise, but only a small percentage of our budget can come from those sales.
I see.
The rest of it comes from donations.
Yep.
It comes from sponsorships, and it comes from grants. We would not be able to operate and do the things that we do without those elements. So a strategic plan rolls into that. For some grants, you need it. For some reporting, you need to show that you have a strategic plan.
Right.
That's the more technical aspect of why. The other aspect of why any nonprofit should have a strong strategic plan so that they are able to reference periodically where they are at in the process, so that they know that what they're doing and where they're going aligns with what staff and board members have come together to say, this is what we feel is important.
Yeah.
So we've done a variety of things since we started in the process of kind of rebranding the Minot Area Council of the Arts. We have a new logo we've had for a couple years. We have the new strategic plan. Last fall, we adopted a new mission statement.
Okay.
Really bringing together what it is that we do and what we go for, and that was all done strategically. Moving into 2023, because 2023 is our 50th year of service to the Minot community.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's not my 50th year of service. I've got a couple years left before that. But so it's our 50th year of service, and our new mission. Connecting artists, building community, fostering possibilities ties in everything that we do, and it wraps into that strategic plan. Just allowing us to recognize those areas that we feel are important and that we want to strive to make those connections on. Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of the focus was beyond it was just sponsoring, creating opportunity for artists to get recognition. Yep. It seemed like that was probably a primary focus of the strategic plan. Some of the research that you guys did prior to the plan, they weren't as focused with resources as much as, hey, just create an environment where we can get noticed.
Right.
How do you feel like that's gone, and do you have any plans of continuing to develop that into 2024?
Yes, we are. We're always working on that aspect, trying to figure out how best to serve our artists and the arts community in Minot. We've done very well. So Minot Area Council of the Arts has gone through a kind of a tumultuous history. Okay. We had an executive director that worked for about 18 years. Was the director for 18 years of the Minot Area Council of the Arts, and she left. She stayed on the board. She's still on the board.
Awesome.
Terry's great, but she stepped down from her position as executive director.
Yeah.
And then we had a few years of a couple different executive directors who did what they could, but MACA kind of went into a bit of a slump, of a this is the way it's been. We're getting into a rut. It just sort of was.
Right.
Throughout a variety of things over the last 10 years, there have been elements of the arts community in Minot that were not engaging with the Minot Area Council of the Arts for one reason or another, and I'm not going to go into any of that. But when I came on board, I saw that, and one thing that I knew that needed to happen, once I started recognizing some of these things, I started having conversations. And I started one of the first ones I had was Jasmine Schultz.
Yes.
If you know Jasmine. Fabulous human being, and credit to Minot. I sat down with Jasmine one day and I said, okay, there are those that I would like to be able to bring into the fold of MACA that aren't. What do I need to do?
Right.
We kind of had that conversation, and it kind of led me to understand a few things and know where MACA sat.
Yeah.
And so 5 years later, we have grown our summer programming. We have built additional programming outside of the summer. We have had 2 opportunities to be grant makers and give grants to artists and arts organizations. The last one we were able to do all over the state, not just in Minot. I try to be open to conversations from artists when I'm available, when I can, be able to talk to them and hope that they understand that we're there to serve them, and we're in a pattern right now of trying to figure out how membership in MACA works.
Gotcha.
Because as I said, we have members, and we find our members are very important to us.
Yes.
But are there different ways that we can go about doing this? Because membership dues, while we have membership dues, they make up a very small portion of our budget.
Right.
Because, first of all, if you're an individual artist, if you're a single artist, painter, sculptor, whatever, your annual membership dues, if you want to be a member of MACA, are a whopping $6 a year.
Wow. Brutal.
Brutal, absolutely. And to what extent does that become important? Because we have a lot of individual artists who are paying us $6 a year, and we appreciate that, and it gives them some ownership in our organization.
Right.
But on the other hand,
it's just a formality at that point.
Right. It is a formality at that point. So we're examining different ways in which we can serve the arts community. We're trying to figure out some of those things. I don't want to go into too much detail because we don't know where it's going yet.
Right. Yep.
But I anticipate over the next year or two, membership in MACA is going to be looking very, very different.
Right.
And it's all in an effort to do better service for all the artists that exist in Minot.
Yeah, that'll change the entire landscape there because you'll be able to serve them better, provide them better value to what's going on. And neat. That's exciting. We'll look forward to that. So we're coming to the end of this. We've covered a lot.
I'm not. I tend to be long-winded.
Oh, you've been fantastic. You've been fantastic. It's been really interesting to learn more about what MACA does. And I'm excited. And next year, I'll make sure I get to one of the
some of those
Thursday nights.
Concerts.
Yeah, we'll definitely get out there on Thursday nights. And it sounds like you also are going to have a lot of fun things over the winter too. Yeah. So excited.
Well, this summer was a big one. 9.5 weeks, 31 concerts, 6,200 people in attendance. Over the course. It's a lot of work. We second highest attendance in our 38-year history of doing summer concerts. I was really hoping for the 50th that I would break the record, but I was 140 people short.
I'm sorry.
You could have been one of those.
Yes.
Jonathan, you could have been one.
Right. So that's exciting. Well, any parting words of wisdom or anything that you want to add as we say goodbye?
Show up.
Show up.
That's big. That's one of my biggest messages, and I say that I'm not necessarily saying you have to show up for what I do.
Right.
Show up for something that somebody is doing.
Right.
Because most of it's free. If it's not free, most of it's low cost. There are plays, there are gallery events, there are artist receptions, there are music performances all over the city of Minot. And I just found out this morning that one of our events in October is coinciding with another tremendous event, and that really bummed me out. But I have no other space in October that I could have done the event anyway because there's other things going on.
Exciting things,
Anybody who says there's nothing to do in Minot is not taking 2 seconds to go and look because there's so much. So show up.
Yeah.
That's my parting words.
Those are big ones.
Oh, also, and I'm going to do this because I have to. If you want to find out more about creatives in rural communities, you can check out our podcast, the Minot Arts Podcast, a map to the arts in small town America. You can find that almost anywhere you can find podcasts.
Yeah,
so
we were talking
cross-link that podcast.
We were talking a little bit beforehand, and it sounds pretty exciting. So I'll check that out myself.
Every episode is an interview with a different local artist.
Okay. Another way to highlight the artists. So very cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Justin.
Absolutely.
Thanks
for
pleasure.
having me.
Yes. And want to say thank you once again to our sponsor, Shock, Safe, and Lock. Thank you to our listeners for watching or listening to another episode of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Dakotan on Facebook and on YouTube. And stay tuned for some more exciting content we have coming your way. Thanks. Have a good day.